Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 69 of Code Lyoko, Rec Room. This one's kind of just a filler episode. Pretty much what's going on is that a new rec room has opened at Katic Academy, and essentially the principal is just telling everyone that they have to elect someone to kind of oversee it, be the representative to watch over it, etc. All the students are just kind of arguing about who gets to be it. Sissy says she should do it since she's the principal's daughter. Odd thinks he should do it because hey, he's already the class rep. But Sissy rightfully points out that he doesn't even do that much. Most likely is because of the whole Xana fiasco. And Jim, hearing all the arguing, pretty much just says, you know what, we're just gonna vote on it. So he just picks a few random candidates, brings them up, and then just has the group vote on them. And the winner is William, or more specifically, his clone. Of course, the clone, of course, is like, oh, cool, what did I win? But everyone just assumes he's joking. But of course, the Lyoko group, is a bit worried about this, as we saw with the Jeremy clone. The clones that they create on Lyoko aren't exact duplicates of the originals, and unfortunately, the William clone is kind of a dumbass. He takes everything literally. Obviously, doesn't pay attention or notice how certain things operate. And as Jeremy puts it, while he can, or as one of them puts it, I forget which one. I think it's Jeremy, or is it Ulrich? I don't remember. Bottom line, while he doesn't stand out in a crowd, if attention is called to him, people will notice the problems and inconsistencies. So the group realizes that they kind of need to keep an eye on him. Thankfully, Jeremy believes that he's found a solution to their William problem, as the night before he had pretty much just stayed up all night working on a program to retrieve William, and he thinks that if they can get that running now, then they can get William back, and all of this won't matter. So as such, Jeremy and Aelita go to the factory while the rest of the Lyoko group follow the William clone and the other students to the rec room so they can keep an eye on him. Sorry, just had lunch. Guess still technically having it. Anyway, so pretty much Jeremy gets when they get to the factory. Jeremy launches Jeremy launches the program in the tower that he activated to create the William clone, since it has William's DNA. But unfortunately, when he introduces it, it just bugs the system up and causes several files in the tower to go haywire. As a result, it begins reflecting on the clone in the real world, who is currently playing a game of ping pong against Jim. And right in the middle of the game, the clone just suddenly starts getting cocky and arrogant, is actually getting really good at ping pong. Of course, the group realizes that Jeremy's kind of screwing it up, and unfortunately, as Jeremy's trying to debug the tower, it's just getting too wonky. He can't find the files that he needs to debug it. So Aelita decides that she'll go into Lyoko and do it manually. Of course, Jeremy thinks that that's a bad idea because, well, Xana could launch an attack while she's in there, which he has done several times in the past. But Aelita thinks that it's probably safe, and so after they kind of have a short talk, Jeremy concedes that okay, fine, go in. As such, she goes into Lyoko, and a surprising show and brilliance. Jeremy virtualizes her in next to the tower. But unfortunately, one of the bugged files is Aelita's identification Aelita's identification moniker. Bottom line, the tower no longer recognizes her, and so it's not letting her in. To make matters worse, as Jeremy thought, Xana takes advantage of the situation, sends a group of tarantulas to scare Aelita off, and he begins to take over the tower. And unlike with when Jeremy created his clone, Jeremy can't get any power from Sector 5 to boost the tower's defenses, because that's one of the files that was bugged. So, of course, Xana hijacks the tower and takes control of the clone, causing it to attack the Lyoko group. As a result of this, Yumi and Odd manage to get away from the clone, but unfortunately, Ulrich is kind of stuck with it, and Sissy ends up latching along because she sees the clone acting violent, and she doesn't want to leave Ulrich in its hands. Again, showcasing her more positive character traits, which I'm always okay with. But in the meantime, as Yumi and Odd are trying to make their way to the tower, Alita is trying to fend out the tarantulas, but in the distance she sees a group of crabs with William being chased by them. At first, she assumes that maybe the program worked and that William is free from Xana, and so she goes in to assist William in taking down the crabs, which they do manage to do well. But it does turn out to be an act. It turns out that William wasn't actually free. He was just putting on an act to get close to Alita, which, yeah, even when I first saw this episode, I kind of suspected that because when he appears, he's still wearing the Xana outfit. Like the whole black, the his sword still has the symbol on it. Yeah, I think it I like now to be fair, you could make the argument that maybe that if the program had worked, maybe all it did was just free his mind. His body is still upgraded by Xana, so even if he's free from Xana, he can't just get rid of that stuff unless he's devirtualized. But the fact that those are on there at all, I think, should at least make you a little suspicious. Even if you go in to help him and fend off the crabs, you could still say, "How do I know you're not being controlled by Xana right now?" So, yeah. Yeah, he takes advantage of the situation to knock Alita out and try to get her thrown in the digital sea, but that's thankfully when Odd and Yumi show up, and from there it's just the same song and dance as before. One of them fends off William, in this case Yumi. Odd and Alita go back to the tower, as and take care of the tarantulas, and and Oric and Sissy in the real world are dealing with the William clone who almost kills them, but at the end of that, things ultimately go well as Jeremy manages to debug the tower enough so that Alita can go inside and deactivate it. They manage to get rid of all the monsters, and once the tower is deactivated, they do a return to the past. And this time the group just decides to back Sissy so that there's no election and everyone just votes for her, allowing the clone to just kind of slip by and no one to even pay it in a second thought. So overall, it's an alright episode. It's just alright. Again, at the end of the day, it's just a kind of filler episode. It's just really a filler episode. Nothing really big comes of it. It's just there. I guess the only other thing we see is Jeremy doing more progress on William's retrieval program, but that's still kind of the overarching thing. And as we see in the episode, it doesn't really make a lot of progress. As when he inputs it, it just bugs things up on Lyoko, specifically with the tower. And at the same time, but I guess one thing you could say with the episode that we finally get more of is seeing more of the William clone. When it was first created, we only got like a glimpse of how different his personality was compared to the original William. As he's just asking questions like, "Should I?" Like maybe because it sounded like. But from the first time you saw him, you could make the argument that maybe he was just clueless, that he didn't have information he needed before. But this episode showcases how different he is than the original William. He's an idiot. Like a full-fledged idiot. He takes things literally. He doesn't know how to do basic tasks like unlocking a door. He can't play ping pong, and he's just like super. He just doesn't really pay attention. He's just kind of a dumbass who's just kind of it's like a guy who's just told go in that direction, he'll do it. Tell him to jump, he'll jump. Tell him to walk into a wall, he'll gladly do it until you tell him to stop. It's just kind of like it is slightly amusing for the most part, but at the same time it is a little But nothing really much. But otherwise, there's not really much else to talk about when it comes to this episode. It's just more basic filler. I guess the only big thing we could say is that a rec room we get to see the rec room, which it does kind of lead to a funny moment because Jim, once he sees the rec room, goes right for the ping pong table because he thinks it's cool. And he and Odd actually end up playing a game, which Jim wins. And it's actually one of the few times that Jim is willing to talk about his dark, mysterious past or whatever it is, because apparently he was a ping pong whiz at some point in his life. But Odd is so exhausted from the game that he doesn't even want to hear it. So we don't even get to, Jim doesn't even get a chance to talk about it. It's actually kind of funny. Another little thing I also like though is a little bit of continuity. In this case, in the episode while Ulrich and Sissy are running away from the William clone, they find that they can't really get away. They end up getting they end up getting kind of cornered in a building, and the only way they can get out is by going up. So they climb the top floor, they go into like an attic, and they climb out onto the roof. But while they're there, when they get up there, it turns out that Ulrich has a tough time up there because he has a vertigo, which I actually kind of think is I think is nice. When the idea with the whole thing with him having vertigo was introduced into the story, it was something that I felt was just kind of tacked on because in the initial episode, it was only important for like one scene and then never and then back did not factor into any part of the episode. But but I like that they actually showcase that it is consistently a part of who he is. He does have regularly have vertigo. We saw it briefly in the Xana Awakens two-parter when he went to the factory. When he had to take one of those when he had to swing down to the bottom floor. He did briefly kind of lapse, but then managed to brush it off. And now we see it again here as when he's running away from when he insists you're running away from the William clone. He just kind of he's stuck. He has to actually crawl down onto his. He actually has to hold on to the roof in order to not lose his balance, while Sissy is able to maintain her balance by walking down the center. Again, I like little details like that. I like that. I like little details like that. Just it's a nice way of maintaining continuity and keeps you invested more into the plot. But otherwise, though, yeah, nothing really much comes of the episode. We don't really get a lot of character stuff. We don't really get big plot points are developed. It's just all right. It's amusing to see the William clone doing weird stuff. I do admit it was a little cool to see William and Aelita briefly fighting side by side, even if it was just a trap. But yeah, overall, just an all right episode. Just overall filler. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.